Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Caitlin with Ormond Arms, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most frequently asked questions that we get from our customers, which is, what are the tools that I need to complete my AR build that I buy from Ormond Arms? So today we brought back Frank Johnson.
Thank you, Caitlin.
And he is going to go over what you will need to finish your build.
Correct. So the tools that you'll need, there's the basic tools, your primary, your secondary, and so on. And I guess it's going to come down to a few things. A lot of what Ormond Arms sells are complete uppers.
Yes.
Along with, again, the 80% lowers. But Ormond Arms, you do sell serialized complete lowers, correct?
We do, yes.
Yeah. So that will change to what kind of tooling you need. But I will tell you this, there are some primary tools that you'll need regardless. And even if you buy a complete gun from Ormond Arms, you're going to need the tools anyways to disassemble that firearm for cleaning and maintenance. Mm-hmm. So one of the main tools specifically for ARs is going to be your armorer's wrench. And here we have two types. Obviously we have one from Brownells, and here's one from Range Max. And these are actually tools that I keep as a gunsmith, I use for myself. And the third tool that you're going to probably need, which I use a lot, is going to be your adjustable wrench. This is going to be a lot for your barrel nuts and putting together your muzzle brakes, along with your castle nuts for your buffer tube. And the reason I have two different ones, which is something I think is really critical for a lot of builders that will be building their own upper, is when you look at these parts here for your barrel nuts. And I have a couple of examples here. And the reason is, if you look here, you have one of the older traditional, and the Brownells has multiple pegs that will fit into these holes. And if you see, sometimes, depending on the manufacturer of the machining, they're not always perfect. So sometimes when you have the two nubs, you get a better fit. But the thing is, if you look at Brownells for the castle nut versus the Range Max, I prefer the Range Max for my castle nut. It goes over much easier. Okay. So when you're building multiple guns like me, you're going to have these. What you need to do as the owner of the firearm is know what you have. Mm-hmm. Buy the tools for your gun. If you have many variations, then you're going to need many variants in the tools as well. One of the things that I also keep is this is actually for the barrel nut itself. A nice heavy adjustable wrench to get on that barrel nut when you're talking about a handguard like this. This handguard doesn't have any attachments on these armorer's wrench. You're going to actually need your adjustable wrench to get on that nut and get that on there. So that's where you're going to get these three tools are going to be part of your primary set. One tool that I also keep is a regular wrench. And depending on what type of muzzle brakes the customer has, you only need one. This one here is a 19 mil, and I will tell most of my customers, people I help build guns, is go to your local hardware. You don't need to buy something special for gunsmithing, and buy the independent wrench. You don't need to buy a whole set. Don't go to your toolbox and take that wrench, because then when you need to fix the car, you got to go to your toolbox for your guns, and you're separating again and you're searching. These tools here you can keep in a range bag for when you go shooting if you have a break. Now, there's a few other tools that we can get into, but when I was in the Marine Corps, we had to learn to take apart that gun with no assistance of blocks or jigs or anything like that. But at the home, most of the customers are not buying ARs to beat up like we did in the Marine Corps. They want the gun to stay beautiful. So a few of the things you can get is you can get a block like this for your mag well that goes in your vise. Here's what we call a bench block. This bench block works in many ways. You can set it here, drive in your pins when you're complete, flip it over. You know, you have all these other accessories, and you have the holes for the pins to go through. As well, when you're doing work on the buffer tube, you can line it up. And these work pretty well, especially on hard surfaces, so you're not, dinging up and scratching your finish. That's why I'll have felt. I like the purple. So these are key. And over here for your upper, you're going to have another vise block. Put your upper in. So it goes in real nice. This one I got from Brownells. So many of you who don't have a vise, This block here, I picked this one personally for myself because of the holes for attaching it to my bench where I can actually drill it in. So if I have to go out to the field, customer calls me for help, I don't need to bring a bench, a vise. I can actually drill this into a log and a fence and help fix the gun.
Convenient.
And this is actually, yeah, this one here will work on multiple platforms, the AR10 and 308 or the DPMS, as well as the AR15 or the DPMS 15. So, you know, a vise, I actually use this vise here. It's a small vise. This one I use a lot for assembling my gas blocks.
Okay.
When you're doing what I do, I might be putting together 30 to 50 guns. I don't want to take this block off and on, off and on. So if you're lucky enough to have a main vise at home and you have a second vise, I try to dedicate them to a particular use. So in this one is nice because this works really good with the gas blocks, assembling gas blocks. Now, some of the other tools that are really critical to have when you're building your upper and your lower are going to be your punch set and having a good hammer. So I actually keep multiple hammers, depending on what I'm using. Obviously, you know, a steel or brass can mar. The brass is pretty good. I usually don't have any markings on my guns from it. It doesn't damage it. But in this set, I've actually used this plastic punch for getting my detent in on my upper. So this really comes good. What I did is I drilled a hole, put it through, and it works the same way as this tool here, which helps. So these are going to be one of the tools because, you know, if you're doing, you know, 2 or 3 of these and one of those things flies out, you don't have spare. You have 2 in your kit. So there's a few of those things in there. One of the main tools you're going to need is safety glasses, speaking of detents. I've had one come out once, I forgot my glasses, hit me in the eye, I felt like somebody punched me.
Wow.
So you don't necessarily have to have these type of punches. These are going to be your roll pin punches. These will hold your roll pins, and you have about 4 roll pins from your gas block, your forward assist, your bolt catch, and if you have a lower, like this one, where you don't have the trigger guard, you're going to have that 4th roll pin, as well as a lot of the charging handles will have roll pins. So I recommend if you're going to get the roll pin punches, get a set, and they come with a wide variety of sizes. If you don't want to get that, you can use regular punches. However, when you get to your bolt catch, and you see how that's knurled there for your grip, you're putting that right next to your surface to punch that in, and you'll see a lot of people with scratches here. Yeah. So you want to avoid that if you want that gun to look pretty. Now, some of the other tools that we have are going to be your hex wrenches. You don't necessarily need to buy this big of a set. Again, you know, being a gunsmith, I use that because I do a variety of guns from 1911s, Glocks, AR15s, AR10s. So I need this variety. So one of the things that's a pretty cheap buy is going to be filing sets. Now again, most of the guns you're working on, you're not building artillery or tanks. So a lot of these little files, I use this one a lot with the flat edge in my ARs. After I drill the holes, there's a lot of burrs on the inside, and you have problems with your triggers sitting in there. So I use that to clean up the edges. So those, I believe those are a couple bucks at a lot of your local hardwares. Some of the other tools I would recommend getting, you know, simple flathead leverage in there. I use this one here because it has a magnetic tip. If I drop a screw, I can reach down below somewhere, pull it out. So that's the thing to keep in mind. And it might sound odd, but a fine tip permanent marker. What I use this for is a gas block. You can mark a line along the spine of your barrel to make sure that the hole in your gas block lines up exactly. And your handguard will cover. You don't need to put a long line, a little dot up on the top to make sure you're lining up your holes. Now, if you don't want to buy a roll pin punch set, you need needle nose pliers to hold that pin while you're going to tap that roll pin in, because you need somehow to hold it. Those pins are too small for your fingers to hold. Now, like I had mentioned, if you're buying a complete gun from Ormond Arms, you're not going to need all of this per se, unless you're going to take it apart and clean it. You can always bring your guns to somebody like me, a gunsmith who will clean it, take it apart and fix it, and you'll never need to buy this. But if you're going to buy to keep your gun clean, one of the key tools you're going to need is a cleaning kit. It doesn't need to be, you know, a $1,000 gun kit. Something simple, basically, has this one here, has a scrub brush in it, a pick, and some of your brass scrubbers there to get your barrels clean. That's all you're going to need. Now, if you're going to get an 80%er and not a completed gun, some of the things you're going to need are jigs. Now, these are what I'm going to refer to as a guiding jig, because these jigs you're going to attach. Let's see if we get this one apart there. It's not screwed in. This one actually screw in tight. And what this will do, just to give you a guide, and they'll come with many inserts. What it does is it'll lock in, the lug will lock in to your upper, your lower, right here to your takedown, and then you'll start drilling. There'll be many plates with different holes, like this one has. This is a kit you get from Ormond Arms. This is actually for a 308, the AR10, and it'll guide you for hand machining, hand drilling. Now that'll take you a number of hours by hand drilling it. So if you don't want to spend that time and you have the money, or you're going to build, you know, a lot of them, you can go into the Ghost Gunner or other types of CNC machines. This one is actually designed and dedicated. You can get a memory stick, and Ghost Gunner actually sells jigs based on what type of lower you have. So in this case, we have here the AR15 or the DPMS variant. So Ghost Gunner, Defense Distributed, sells these jigs, and what these jigs are guiding jigs. So that locks it up here. You're put one on this side, and they get bolted in. And then, if you can see on here, there's a little red wire. It sends about 4 volts through the lower. So when the machine probes, it knows exactly where this gun is, and these jigs keep it placed in a very particular spot on that bed. So to machine your pocket, and then when you set it up, it'll drill your holes. And again, like I said, this doesn't help with machining per se like these will, but Defense Distributed has holes here, so when you know your holes are getting drilled out, you can actually on the machine look in, see that you're lined up. And there are companies out there like GGD who make jigs for skeletonizing and engraving. Like it's here, let's get this jig off. They're pretty tight and stiff on here, so they're pretty good quality from Ghost Gunner. There we go. So like you see this engraving, you get a jig from GGD, and then you go to Ghostwriter, who will provide you with the code that you submit to him. You submit it to an image, and he'll give a code back to you that you will feed into your machine. And then again, you'll do your probing, and the machines will do your engraving. And like I had said in a previous video about ghost guns, by labeling or identifying your weapon as your property, you can recover it if it's stolen or lost. So these are a lot of the tools you're going to need. There's additional stuff. I use a multi-tool for cleaning up parts, little shaving ends to help fine-tune. That's where you get into the gunsmithing, is when you got a really hand tool with the files and the fine-tuning. Some of the things I would recommend getting just for your general purpose of your snap caps. These are 223. These will fit in the barrel. So when you dry fire your gun, you can cycle your gun, make sure everything's working. You're not going to damage your firing pin. So there's a few of the good things to get. Now, for me, just to give a little personal for what I use, like I said, I use a felt. These are soft. You don't scratch the lowers. As well as this mat here, you can pick up at a lot of your local tooling shops where you get your screwdrivers. These are your inserts for drawers. Now they're non-skid. They're also soft enough that they won't mar. And I actually picked up this from a restaurant supply, and I call it my surgery room tray.
That's a great idea.
So when I'm working on parts, I put all my stuff into the tray. This goes on the table, and nothing slides around. So actually I can load up, put my tools at home, and then clean up. Because when you're going to get into milling out your 80s with your jigs, you're going to have a lot of aluminum shavings. So it helps to keep it clean, especially a lot of you with kids and around. You don't want those shavings getting anywhere. I know if you're working in the shop, it's fine. But that brings up another tool that we don't have here, and that is a shop vac. If you don't have a shop vac, don't use your wife's vac. The aluminum will destroy it. So get a shop vac. I personally use the little 5-gallon buckets with the little shop vac that goes on it. And I do a lot of this in my man cave, which is on the side of the living room, and it stays very clean. So that's really pretty much what you need. And I think if anybody has any more questions, again, you can go to ormondarms.com, email Caitlin there, comment below, as well as a form that we use to get a lot of our information is the AR15forum.com. I'm actually on that quite a bit, so if you have any questions, you can hit me up on there as well. So, Caitlin, I think that might answer all your questions. Any questions for you?
That was awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you guys for tuning in. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.